That said, the impeachment of the president at its core remains this simple thing. I mean, you can't ask a foreign power for assistance with your reelection campaign. You can't even ask, no matter what they give. The effort by the president to carry out that scheme, though, wasn't as simple a matter. It turns out to have involved this amazing array of true crime all-stars, right? And because this was him trying to leverage a foreign power into doing this on his behalf, he wasn't just demanding it, he was trying to force them into it. It also involves the foreign policy and U.S. defense policy establishment. All these elements of the national security apparatus of the U.S. government were all brought to bear on this illegal scheme to get that country to help the president get reelected. And that part of what the president is being impeached for, his use of the national security apparatus, his use of military aid, his use of diplomatic pressure, his use of sort of shadow diplomacy conducted by all of these crooks working with Rudy Giuliani. I mean, that's all, coincidentally or not, coming to the surface right now, while real American foreign policy and defense policy is collapsing into catastrophe. We're going to be speaking live with NBC's Richard Engel from northern Syria in just a few minutes. The Kurdish fighters who the U.S. military was allied with for years inside Syria. President Trump inexplicably last week told Turkey that we would step away from them, and Turkey was essentially free to come into the territory that our Kurdish allies had been holding, so Turkey could take it for their own purposes. With us abandoning our allies there, our Kurdish allies, predictably, now as of yesterday, have made a formal alliance with somebody else who they can count on more reliably. They've turned for support and protection against Turkey to their next best option, which is Russia and the Syrian regime, which is propped up by the Russian military. Russia props up the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad. The Kurdish fighters who had been our allies fighting against ISIS have now left us because we left them. They're now instead switching sides, so they're siding with Assad and the Russians instead, which leaves nobody fighting ISIS anymore at all. It also means that U.S. troops are one of the stranded/abandoned parties here. U.S. troops in the region have been reportedly pinned down and bracketed by Turkish artillery fire since the president's surprise announcement that U.S. troops would get out of the way and allow Turkey to advance. Them being bracketed by artillery fire means that they have been deliberately targeted by a foreign military that's supposedly one of our NATO allies. I mean, there's now a serious question, aside from everything else going wrong here. There's now a serious question as to the safety of these American troops, even while they are being withdrawn. The Defense Department has announced that President Trump has now ordered them all out, but we're still not even sure how all that happens. With Turkish troops and Turkish-supported troops controlling a key road out of the region, the plans for withdrawing U.S. troops are very uncertain. This is from David Sanger tonight in the New York Times. Quote, President Trump's acquiescence to Turkey's move to send troops deep inside the Syrian territory has in only 1 week's time turned into a bloody carnage, forced the abandonment of a successful 5-year-long American project to keep the peace on that volatile border, and given an unanticipated victory to 4 American adversaries: Russia, Iran, the Syrian government they support, and ISIS. Rarely has a presidential decision resulted so immediately in what his own party leaders have described as disastrous consequences for American allies and interests. He says, quote, the drama is nowhere near over. Out of necessity, the Kurds switched sides on Sunday, turning their backs on America. At the Pentagon, officials struggled with the right response if Turkish forces, again, NATO allies, again opened fire on any of the 1,000 or so Americans who are now preparing to retreat from their positions inside Syria. Those U.S. troops are trapped for now, since Turkey has cut off the roads. Removing them may require an airlift. And in case that's not unnerving enough, here's something I completely forgot to panic about. Quote, over the weekend, U.S. State and Energy Department officials were quietly reviewing plans for evacuating roughly 50 tactical nuclear weapons that the U.S. has long stored under American control at Incirlik Air Base in Turkey. Oh, right. Now that our supposed NATO ally, Turkey, is shooting artillery rounds at American forces, maybe we need to rethink the safety of us keeping 50 of our tactical nuclear weapons sitting inside an airbase in their country. Right? If we're going to have to send in an airlift to rescue U.S. troops, out of a situation that the president precipitously created while U.S. troops were in danger, then maybe we should worry about the U.S. troops that are guarding our live nuclear weapons inside Turkey. Don't worry, though. Rick Perry and Mike Pompeo are tasked with figuring out a plan to get all those nuclear weapons safely taken care of. I should mention that Mike Pompeo and Rick Perry are both facing subpoenas from the impeachment inquiry right now. And, maybe you wanted U.S. troops not to be in Syria in the first place. Maybe you wanted them brought home now or sometime before now. But nobody has ever advocated for what President Trump has done. This reckless and bizarre, sudden announcement that turned a previously basically peaceful, at least stable part of Syria, controlled by our allies, into what is now the site of civilian massacres and journalists being shot at and everything else. Now that whole swath of Syria will likely end up being controlled by Assad and Russia in some sort of deal that they will likely work out between themselves and Turkey. The president's decision leading to this reckless and, again, bizarre risk to American troops there, without support, with their supply lines cut off, with no clear way to retreat, without any clear indication of what they're supposed to be doing, without any clear indication that the president knew they were there and that they would be at risk. If we suddenly greenlit the second largest military in NATO coming in and taking over that territory from our allies. I mean, U.S. troops stuck there at the site of our abandonment of these allies that our soldiers spent 5 years working with and supporting and promising to stand by. It's what the Times described tonight as a, quote, fast unraveling situation. Meanwhile, a 30-plus-year veteran of the Foreign Service, William J. Burns, has come forward to say that what the president is doing now, in total, should be seen as more of a danger to Americans' international influence than anything in the past 70 years, calling President Trump, quote, for dictators, the gift that keeps on giving. We're going to be speaking with Bill Burns here live tonight. Also, Richard Engel live from northern Syria. We'll also be watching for the continuing development of lots of these stories that are still rolling tonight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.